Hi, everybody. My name's Audrey Maynard. I'm with the Prince George's County Memorial System. I'm joined by my colleague, Mary Kietzman, and our debut author, Sera Taíno. We're really excited to share with you a bunch of books that we love, and we're calling this panel Diverse Choices in Romance. We hope you enjoy it. So why do we have this kind of panel today? I've loved romances since I was a teenager, many years ago at this point. Once I felt apologetic for loving romances, but not anymore. I thought it was a guilty pleasure. I don't think so anymore. Romance is like any other genre in writing. Sure, a happily ever after or a happy for now is pretty much guaranteed, but now, how two or more people, how do they get there? What is their background and how is their journey? If you're new to romance, we offer you a very warm welcome. If you're a longtime reader, I hope we can give you some fresh, new recommendations.
I'm Sera Taíno, and I'm a writer. My debut novel comes out in fall of 2021 with Harlequin Special Editions, entitled Incomparable. It focuses on a fictional community in Eastward, New Jersey. It follows a young woman from a Puerto Rican family who thinks she's met Mr. Right, only to find out his family's real estate business has plans that could change her beloved community forever. In addition to writing, I'm also a high school language arts teacher, and I also run a creative writing club at my school.
Mary?
Yes, hi, I'm Mary Kietzman. I also work for the library for Prince George's County Memorial Library System. And I enjoy reading romance, and I was happy to be part of the Reader's Advisory panel put together by Audrey, because I was hoping somebody would talk about romances and I could join in. And I used to read romances as a teen, and then really got much more into them when I discovered the author Mary Belloc in 2008. So I've liked romances ever since. So I'm glad to be part of this and glad we can offer some good romance choices for y'all to read. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to introduce our first group of books is going to be a group of teen titles, 4 teen titles that are diverse, and then we're going to go into some adult titles. Sera will also talk to us about the Harlequin Mentorship, the inclusivity project that she's involved with, the Karina Adores line, which is a diverse line, and Mary will tell us about NextReads and NovelistPlus. So enjoy. Sera, you've got the first book, Felix Ever After by Karen Callender.
I was very lucky to read this book. I work with high school students, and so young adult lit, I try to read what the kids are reading. And Felix Ever After is just a jewel. To summarize it, Felix has never been in love, and yet he is painfully aware of the irony. He desperately wants to know what it's like and what it seems so easy for everyone else to find but him. What's worse is that even though he is proud of his identity, he fears that one of his many marginalizations might be one too many to allow him to find this happily ever after. There are some content warnings in this book to pay attention to. He does have students, an anonymous student, who sends him transphobic messages throughout the novel. And it forces him to really address his identity. He's been out for a few years by the start of the novel. He is, in fact, trans male, and but the person who's harassing him sort of harasses him with his previous identity. One of the beautiful things about this book is that it just sort of brings us along in his journey and makes us feel like it's something natural and a part of his life and the life of all people to find love. And when you get to the climax of the book, it just feels so satisfying because he struggled so much throughout the novel. And there's a great group of friends in the novel who support his journey. So it's just a wonderful book, and I can't, recommend it more.
I'm excited to read it. It also has a beautiful cover, which is very memorable. So, all right, I am next up with 3 titles. The first is called Looking for Group by Rory Harrison. It came out in 2017. Our system only owns it in book format. This was the best teen title I read last year, and it was also the loveliest teen romance, I thought. I haven't read a lot last year, so it's first among not too many that I read last year on this category. There are some parallels with another title here, also called Looking for Group, although this is a road trip edition. Dylan and Arden become great friends in World of Warcraft. Dylan is unexpectedly in remission from cancer. He has a setback trying to re-enroll from school, and as a result, he impulsively takes his mom's car to meet Arden IRL in real life. They set out to visit quirky American landmarks on their way to the Salton Sea. Although he identifies as gay, Dylan is increasingly attracted to Arden, who is trans female. This novel is heartfelt, funny, passionate, and not at all sentimental. The ending is mysterious. What do you think really happened? What is the end? What do you think it means? My second title is Birthday by Meredith Russo. Came out in 2019. Our system owns it as an ebook and in book. Lifelong best friends Eric and Morgan were born on the same day in the same hospital during a snowstorm that bonded their families throughout their adolescence. In alternating chapters from their high school years, they document their changing, often confusing feelings for one another. Morgan struggles to find a way to tell Eric and her dad that she's not a boy. Each birthday, she receives a touching letter or a gift from her mom, who died not long ago from cancer. In his turn, Eric feels trapped in an angry family and a small town where everybody seems to know everybody's business. There is some warning in here that some very distressing events occur. We close in a satisfying and romantic way. This is a Stonewall Award winner for teens.
I read that one. That was very good. I liked it.
It is. It's a lovely book. Finally, I have Kiss number 8. It's a graphic novel. We own it as a book in an ebook format. Came out in 2019 by Colleen A.F. Venable. High school is a time that many spend trying to figure out who they are and what they want to be. Amanda is full of questions, but security in her family isn't one. She's close with her dad, sharing passions for weird soap opera and baseball, less in tune with her mom, who has other interests. Her wild friend Kat is always tempting Mads to go over the line. Some other feelings awaken along with a long-buried family secret. A rift with Kat leads her to a new group of friends and some answers. Oftentimes, religious practice in teen stories winds up being a negative element on the road to self-acceptance for a young person, but this story offers an exception. The graphic format is really effective in laying out the points of view and distortions, and illustrated by Ellen T. Crenshaw. And each of the kisses along the way have multiple meanings. That is the end of our portion for teen. Now, let's see if we can jump to Mary and have you give us a couple of your choices and then fill us in on NextReads and Novelist.
Okay. Welcome, everybody. I hope this sounds okay. Okay. So my first book by Sera Taíno is called The Marriage Game. You own it in the library as an ebook. It came out in 2020. Layla Patel has just moved back to San Francisco to run her own recruiting business. She just had a terrible falling out with her ex-boyfriend, so she totally wanted to get away from New York City. It was time to move. It was the right time now. Her father tells her that she can have the office space that is above their family restaurant, although he's already promised it to corporate consultant Sam Mehta. And he has very conveniently a heart attack and has to go to the hospital, so you cannot cancel the contract. So both of the two people believe that the space is theirs. And also, her dad, trying to be an extra special dad, you know how your dad wants you to have a good relationship, he's made up an online profile for her on the DesiLoveMatch.com so that she might have an arranged marriage. It worked well for them, and I think her older brother had an arranged marriage also. So she goes along with it. Her last boyfriend was so terrible, such a bad breakup, that she will go along on these blind dates. And actually, Sam will go with her to vet the potential husbands and be a chaperone. And they have an agreement. If he helps her find a husband, she walks away and he gets the office. And if she doesn't find one, he will walk away. Soon though, now you can see this coming, I can see it coming, he wants her for himself. He doesn't like any of the potential husbands. They're way weird, they're strange. It won't work out for them. And also, he doesn't trust arranged marriages because his sister Nisha had one. And even though he tried to vet her future husband, a terrible thing still happened. They both have good chemistry. There's also family members and friends involved, so you see their side of the story from those perspectives also. Layla would make sure she's living up to her family's expectations. Her older brother, who was the golden boy, is deceased now, so she has an extra burden on herself that she thinks. And Library Journal said that this debut novel is a witty and delightful story about family, forgiveness, and letting go, and is utterly satisfying. So that was the first pick. So I thought, yeah, Marriage Game, and also has a nice, pretty blue cover. And then the next book, and one nice thing about these is that when you have the one book and you also have sequels or related books of their family and friends, my next book by Jasmine Guillory, The Wedding Date, has 5 books out now. So this was the first one, so I'm looking forward to reading more in this series. It's available in book and ebook from the library. Came out in 2018. Alexa Monroe meets Drew Nichols when they're stuck in an elevator in a hotel in San Francisco. She has snacks, they have a good time bantering and kind of flirting with each other. They enjoy each other's company and think their encounter is about to end until Drew, he's in town for his ex-girlfriend's wedding. He needs a +1. And in fact, they will pretend that they're boyfriend and girlfriend, not even just a date, but actually in a relationship. And so they keep extending their encounters. They have such a good time together. Soon they're traveling each weekend to see each other. Alexa lives in the San Francisco, Berkeley area. She is the mayor's chief of staff, while Drew is a pediatric surgeon in LA. They miss each other when their schedules don't match. But this isn't serious. No. It's just an extended fling. And of course, Drew knows he manages to screw up each relationship, so he wants to get out before he hurts anybody. So can this wedding date extend to forever? Well, you can read and find out. And then the next one, which also has a sequel. This one is Talia Hibbert, Get a Life, Chloe Brown, which is book and ebook, and came out in 2019. This was really good. All of these books I highly recommend. Chronically ill web developer Chloe has had a brush with death, and as she thinks about it, man, her future obituary is very limited. It should have a bit more information. So she writes herself a Get a Life list, and she writes lots of lists to help her cope with life. She has fibromyalgia, she has chronic pain, she has coping mechanisms with her medications she has to have, and she has to have extra rest. And of course, she also lost her friends, being shallow, and for the story, I'm sure, that just didn't work out with them. So her Get a Life list: enjoy a drunken night out. These are some of the things it includes. Ride her motorbike, have meaningless but thoroughly enjoyable sex, and do something bad. So at least she's finally moved out from her family home. And Red Morgan is the building superintendent of the apartment where she lives now. And in fact, she spies him painting with his shirt off in the evenings. So already she's spying. She's done her first thing on the list. Woohoo! Red, the painter, he's still recovering from his abusive relationship with Pippa. He generally likes everyone, but he can't stand Chloe. He thinks she is stuck up and might be similar to Pippa. Chapters alternate between their perspectives. They first start having better interactions when she is rescuing a kitten from a tree. Then he helps her get down from the tree. She enlists him to help with her list. Of course, just some of the items. And in return for helping her, she'll work on his website and the social media presence. And of course, they start to fall in love. But can they put their full trust in the other? The review from Kirkus Reviews said that Red is as charming, sexy, and vulnerable as can be, but Chloe steals the show with her sarcasm, wit, and eccentric coping mechanisms. Even better, Chloe is surrounded by a family of remarkable, glamorous women, including 2 sisters who will be featured in later installments. In the second book, Take a Hint, Danny Brown, the next book is available now. So those are all some good reads that you might get from our library. And now, so if you do need more recommendations, we have our Next Reads list, which besides romance comes out monthly. Or bi-monthly many lists. There are like 24 lists that you could get. Among them, armchair travel, Christian fiction, healthy, wealthy, and wise, mystery, picture books, popular culture, tween reads. And you get these through our website. So I will try to share my screen and I can show you how you get on this. Let's see. Okay, so I'm looking at the library screen. And so our website is pgcmls.info. And at the top, it has the blue line with the date, my catalog, my account catalog, then has our logo. Then below that in the black print, online library, you click on there. And then in blue, there are the links that are next. Look for online resources in the middle of the page. And then I'm clicking on that. It's circling, okay, going to it. So page down the screen, and our online resources come up alphabetically. So in the ends, there's NextReads, paging down. And it says, wondering what to read next, sign up for NextReads. With NextReads e-newsletters, you can receive book suggestions on all your favorite topics. Let's see. You will also be able to check the library collection and place requests. So we'll click on NextReads. And then it has, the newsletters are all in the list on the right. You can also get archives. You don't even need to subscribe. The subscriptions, they'll come to your email automatically, either monthly or bi-monthly. So the link is on the left, subscribe to our NextReads newsletter. And so if I click on that one, then it has the form you fill out. It has subscribe to which newsletters. You could subscribe to all of them or just pick which ones. And then you can get updates on the library, library news, special events for kids, adults, and teens. Put in your name and email. And then at the bottom, you say you're not a robot. And then the subscribe button would be highlighted when I filled out the information. The romance list comes out on the first Monday of the month. There are usually recent releases and usually a theme or focus, like weddings, sports romance, From Scotland with Love. Contemporary and historical romances are featured, also paranormal ones. For instance, the book that I just did, The Get a Life, Chloe Brown, what they say, following a near-death experience, web developer Chloe Brown takes stock of her life and finds it lacking. Carpe diem. Chloe's ambitious get a life list, e.g. have meaningless but thoroughly enjoyable sex, will require some help from building superintendent and secret artist Redford Red Morgan. What sets it apart? A diverse cast of well-drawn characters and a sensitive portrayal of living with fibromyalgia. So that made me want to read the book. I'm like, yeah, let me get that one for one of my diverse romance books. Another resource is NovelistPlus. Let me go back.
And it's right below because it's also an N.
Yes, and this is also a weird screen. Here we go, sorry. Yes, so same thing. I'm just gonna go back to the list of resources. There's NovelistPlus for kids and NovelistPlus for adults. And let me see. And it says for fiction lovers, includes searchable fiction reviews, read-alike lists, award winners, and reading group guides. So if you have a book discussion, this is really helpful. Or if you need to know other books to read or read-alikes, very helpful. And I will put my library card number in.
And we can also, you can do a tutorial video that will walk you through the whole process. And any of our librarians are also happy to help you navigate NovelistPlus.
Yes. What I liked about when I was researching for this, there were actually 17 categories under the romance genre. Well, who knew? Among them, Christian, contemporary, LGBTQIA, holiday, multicultural, and quote, spooky love. And it kind of had a little disclaimer or description under the LGBTQIA listing. For example, there were 27 titles, and it told me that these romances center on GLBTQ couples and may be set during any time period, often examining family relationships as well as characters' self-discovery. And I noticed that among the categories, there are a lot of reading lists recommended on the left: fiction A to Z, historical fiction, novelist staff favorites. What I liked was one thing was reading during pandemic. I thought very, very appropriate. And under that one, there were cozy and gentle stories, heartwarming reads, and of course, pandemic apocalypse, because of course you have to have an apocalypse, not just for zombies anymore. And also you could get I'm in the mood for books that are haunting and spare, which said well-chosen words get under your skin, usually paced and atmospheric, which says savor the mood of these stories, suspenseful and compelling, stay up all night reading, which of course any genre you can stay up all night reading, and dramatic and courageous, heroes wanted. Everybody needs another hero. So that is a small introduction to NextReads and NovelistPlus for all your reading recommendations.
Wonderful. Okay, Sarah, how about giving us about half of your next part of your list? We would love to hear that.
Excellent. Well, lucky me, I get to start off with probably one of my favorite reads of the last year. And it's Boyfriend Material by Alexis Hall. And yes, let us all take a moment to geek out. I actually have my... and I love this book. Well, it's essentially, it's a rom-com, but it's such an amazing rom-com because it's very much rooted in the British comedy tradition. And so it's extremely, it's very British. Like, I think I should just read my notes before I have a... Luke O'Donnell's tangentially and reluctantly famous. His rock star parents split when he was young, and the father he's never met spent the next 20 years cruising in and out of his life, out of rehab. Now that his dad's making a comeback, Luke's back in the public eye, and one compromising photo is enough to ruin everything. To clean up his image, Luke has to find a nice, normal relationship, and Oliver Blackwood is as nice and normal as they come. He's a barrister and ethical vegetarian, and he's never inspired a moment of scandal really ever in his life. In other words, he's perfect boyfriend material. Unfortunately, apart from being gay, single, and really in need of a date for a big event, Luke and Oliver have nothing in common. So they strike a deal to be publicity-friendly fake boyfriends until the dust is settled. Then they can go their separate ways and pretend it never happened. But the problem with fake dating is that it can look a lot like real dating. And that's when you get used to someone, you start falling in love with them, and then you don't ever want to let them go. So again, what I loved about this book is that it really, again, it's trope-tastic. It is fake dating all the way. And you also have sort of an opposites attract, which is sort of like Hall's specialty. He always has the straight character, very straight-laced character with the more flighty and fabulous character, and somehow they find the way to connect. There's the secondary characters really do it for this book. It's extremely witty, and there are party scenes. For example, there's one dinner party scene that sort of calls back to the dinner party scene in Notting Hill, except with a lot more British, humor and sarcasm. And it is just full of this kind of humor that it makes you feel like you're watching a film. Besides the flawless writing and precise character voices, no one really writes insecurity or self-loathing quite the way Hall does. Luke is messy, abrasive, and completely caught up in his own insecurities. He'd almost be unbearable if he wasn't so incredibly vulnerable also. He inspires the reader's empathy and affection because in many ways he's just trying to keep from repeating the trauma brought on by an intimate betrayal of his past. It is a single point of view novel, so we get everything from Luke's point of view, but the reader still manages to get a really good understanding of Oliver, who is really nearly perfect. However, you do realize when we get to the crisis point that he might just be as, damaged and insecure as Luke is. So it's just a fabulous novel. It's LGBTQ, and it is also an Own Voices novel, so it's a lot of fun. Shall I just go ahead and talk about American Dreamers? Okay. So my next book, and I don't have the paperback, but I do have the ebook. This is actually one of 5 books. It's by Adriana Herrera, and it's called American Dreamers. I chose to speak about book 3 because it is probably one of my favorite of the series. But the entire series is actually built around a friendship group of men who have emigrated with their families from the different islands of the Caribbean. So you have Patrice, book 3, is immigrated from Haiti. Book 1, Nesto is from the Dominican Republic. Juan Pablo is from Puerto Rico, and then you have all of the characters have this really strong bond, and they sort of support each other as they're going through and finding their joy and their relationships. The reason that I like Patrice's story a lot is, besides the fact that it's really relevant, he's essentially a professor at Cornell University, and he is very much into the social justice movement on Twitter. And so it really revolves around his relationship with Easton Archer, who is the district attorney in Ithaca, New York. And they seem to be like two sides of the social justice issue, especially with police reform, but they managed to fall in love and try to work that out. So it's a really excellent book, and I think it's really one of the more relevant romances. It's a perfect example of how a romance can also do, make good drama and do good work in the world. My other novel that I chose, I also have a paperback copy of it, is An Island Affair by Priscilla Oliveira, which is book 1 of her Keys to Love series. It revolves around Sarah Vance, who is a social media influencer. She is supposed to be attending her, she goes on a Florida vacation. She's depending on her boyfriend to show up. He doesn't show up. And so Sarah recruits Luis Navarro, who is a firefighter, paramedic, and dive captain who's willing to play the part of her smitten fiance. So it's another fake relationship. Luis's big Cuban family has been in the Keys for generations, and so we get to learn about his enormous Spanish family. Soon he and Sarah are sharing bike rides through the Keys and sharing stories about each other, and then they start getting closer and closer. How long can this fake relationship stay fake before it becomes real? So one of the reasons why I love this book is, again, it plays on another favorite trope, which is very popular right now, which is the fake romance. Oliveira is a what we call a closed door romance writer. So the heat level, even though it's not an explicit novel, but it is extremely emotional. Like, it's very strong. The tension, the romantic tension just keeps increasing. She's an excellent plotter, and she's an excellent romance beat writer. So she gets all your emotional beat. By the time you get to the end of the novel, she has hit every single beat. And so it's just a pleasure to read her. She's also an Own Voices writer. So she's writing from the community that she's representing. She grew up in the Keys. She comes from a mixed Latin family. And so you feel that sort of authenticity when she's talking about family in this novel. So another really great read. I do have one more. Can I talk about that one? Just the last one? This one is from the Harlequin Desire line. It's by J.C. Lee. The name of the book is Temporary Wife Temptation, which, yes, again, is a fake romance. It's really neat because J.C. Lee's novel Sweet Mess was just optioned for Netflix. And so she's, her star is just rising. But she has this Hansoy trilogy that she wrote for Harlequin Desire. And this is the first book. And I have it on my Kindle, but it revolves around Garrett Song and Natalie Sobel. So Garrett Song is the head of his family's LA fashion empire until his grandmother insists that he marries a handpicked wife, and he's like, I'm not doing that. So Natalie Sobel, who is the head of human resources, is extremely competent and extremely beautiful, poses as his wife for her own reasons. She's trying to get custody of her deceased sister's daughter. And so it improves her chances if she's married to Garrett. I really fell in love with the cover of the book. The covers of Harlequin Desire novels are out of this world. And so I fell in love with that. But again, I also love this book because it's a mashup. It's fake engagement, marriage trope. They come from, even though Natalie is well off, he's very much wealthier than she is. They really take to one another. And even though they're attracted to each other, there is a sense, and this is sometimes hard to achieve in some romances, but there's a sense that there's a meeting of equals. Like, Natalie is extremely competent. She's very smart. And Garrett respects that about her. So even though she's fabulous and beautiful and he's attracted to her, he's really attracted to how she's really brilliant. And so that sort of is part of how that whole chemistry sort of takes off and why, in the end, you can't let that fake thing go. So this is one of my favorite reads, and J.C. Lee is one of my favorite writers now because she works really well in this space.
Wonderful, Sarah. Thank you for those bunch. We will come back to you for the next round. And then that next round, we'll have you talk about the mentorship and the inclusivity project also.
Sure.
All right, now on to me for probably the one that's the most explicit of the ones that I think are in here, and it's called The Submission Gift by Solace Ames. The library system owns it only as an ebook. It came out in 2014. As best I can tell, it is her debut. It got good reviews. I read it not knowing much about it. Was going through looking for Karina ebooks that had eroticism in them. Found this, and as often happens, something that you stumble upon by chance becomes one of your top reads ever. So I tell a lot of people about this. It's not going to be to everyone's taste, but I think it's wonderfully done. Young married couple Jay and Adriana have a joyful and satisfying relationship, although Jay knows that Adriana craves domination in a way that's out of Jay's comfort zone. So hiring Paul for a one-off session seems a great way to scratch Adriana's itch. None of them expect that a real relationship among the three of them could be possible. The story is a tender, erotic look at a beautiful menage romance. Ames expertly weaves in physical disability, race, and sexuality in the most balanced polyamory story I've ever encountered, which also includes some harrowing life events. Each partner is a satisfying puzzle piece for the others. So unless you're absolutely won't ever do a polyamory story, you only ever want to do one, this would be a good one to do, because many other ones that I read are sometimes problematic. The second book here is a novella by Alyssa Cole, who's really pretty well known now. Once Ghosted, Twice Shy, which is about my favorite title. It's an ebook that we own, and we also own it in book form. Also came out in 2019. It's part of the Reluctant Royals series, and this novella features Lakotsi, special assistant to the Prince of Fistolo, who's got his own book, and Fabiola. They had a brief fling nearly a year before. Lakotsi felt ghosted by Fabiola, and so she's resistant to renewal of interest. Fabiola persists, and they explore quirky New York together, all kinds of little out-of-the-way spaces, which were among some of my favorite parts of this story. They take things slower, they get to know each other better, and they figure out if their busy lives can intertwine in a happily ever after. Both women have a strong passion for their work, which shines through. This is fine as a standalone or as part of the Reluctant Royals universe. All right, my third in this round, and then we'll toss it back to Mary, is What Kind of Day by Mina V. Esguerra. We own it in book format only. It came out in 2018. How does a very bad day become what kind of day? It's before 8 a.m. and Ben Cacho is already having the worst day. He lost his job and he wants to disappear for a bit. Naya Yamas is ready to depart with her van tour when Ben boards unexpectedly. She reluctantly agrees that he can join See This Manila, which focuses on art and food. They know each other tangentially. By chance, also, Ben's second cousins are also aboard. Naya and Ben are hardworking, serious, and kind of stuck in their professional and personal lives. Picking their story up again 5 months later gives this pair the time and space to work on their own timetables to create a make good days outlook, which is how we end the story. I am looking forward to starting her latest book, which is part of this loosely grouped called 632 Central, and this book is called So Forward. Okay, back to you, Mary.
Okay, wow. I see some books that I'll have to look for now. Thank you for all your all the books you all both have talked about. This is great. And so my next book now is by Casey McQuiston, Red, White, and Royal Blue, which the library owns in book and ebook. It got high reviews, came out in 2019. Alex is the Mexican-American son of the first female president of the United States. He hates Prince Henry, the younger grandson of British Queen Mary. He can't stand him. This guy has no personality. He's plastic. He thinks he's above everything. So there's an international incident involving the wedding cake at Henry's brother's wedding. So after this, the two, quote, enemies for better relations between the two countries, they must become friends, or appear to at least. And actually, there's so much this tension, well, it was sexual tension. So they begin an affair. Soon they're sneaking meetings whenever they can, but they must be absolutely discreet. They're, both the British royals and the American presidency system rely on it. The story is told in present tense from Alex's perspective, although we see what Henry thinks through his texts and emails to Alex. Part of the story is Alex is coming out as bisexual, and it's really a surprise to him. He had really no idea. You'd think some of his actions previously might have thought that for him, but no. His parents and his sister June are really supportive when he is outed, but it's also a diplomatic and political nightmare. Henry, who has known he was gay, has been keeping a low profile. He's had to. The British royals don't get to be who they really are. And of course, any truth can be spun to, quote, fix his situation. Well, does he want that fixing? No, not so much. He wants to claim the life he wants with Alex. Will he be able to do that? Or will he have to deny who he really is? And will Alex cause his mother to lose her re-election bid? And there's also political drama. The friends and family are important. And there's other love interests too that are not sideline, but also in the story as side stories. So it's all the characters are very interesting. Per Kirkus reviews, although Alex and Henry's relationship is the heart of the story, their friends and family members are all rich, well-drawn characters, and their respective worlds feel both realistic and larger than life. A clever, romantic, sexy love story. It was also highly recommended by the guy at the bookstore where I bought my book at the Barnes & Noble. So they all liked it too. Another title is by Alicia Ray, The Right Swipe, which is available in the library on book and ebook. Came out in 2019. And also when I was getting this book, it happened to be one of the diverse book club picks from Target. And in my story, my copy had a brief page from the author for that version. And she says she was really happy to see it like that. Rhiannon Hunter is the creator of the popular Crush dating app. It gives women more control over their encounters with the guys they meet. She would like to buy Matchmaker, which is the more traditional dating website, which still has participants do an extensive questionnaire before matches are made. She must work on an ad campaign with Samson Lima. He's an ex-football player who's the spokesman for Matchmaker now, and also the great date who then ghosted her. As we had a previous story about ghosting, this one is also like Rhea's like, what? Ghosters don't get any second chances, or do they? They're soon falling for each other, but both have reasons to hold back. Samson, for instance, doesn't want it to be serious because she might leave him. He's had some bad personal life issues, and he's still dealing from the fallout from how he left his football career. He was once the Lima charm, but now he's the Lima curse. And Rhea has had a bad time with her ex. He was the CEO of the company she helped found. Then he was abusive and they broke up, and he was more abusive because he forced her out of her job. Should she let herself be vulnerable to Samson? Is he the right swipe? And actually in this book too, it was like some of the Me Too kind of group came out. The people had asked her about her relationship with this abusive ex-CEO, not her ex, who was the CEO. And then other women came forward too from that company. So she found herself doing a good thing about others when she wasn't sure if she should really do that when she was being interviewed. So per Kirkus reviews, Ray, quote, addresses heavy issues without sacrificing passionate sensuality or emotional connection. Although Rhiannon seems more guarded, Samson is just as fearful of vulnerability, and the path to lasting love is a slow but satisfying one. There's also a relationship between Samson and his aunt, who is the owner of the Matchmaker company. So there's very many things that tie in together in this book. And there's also another one in this modern love series, Girl Gone Viral, which is Katrina's story. And Katrina is Rhea's silent business partner who suffers from anxiety. So that would be another diverse romance people might want to read. And I have 2 more books to talk about, so I will talk about those. This next one is a historical romance, because that's mainly what I read when I read romances. This one is by Vanessa Riley, and it's called The Butterfly Bride. And just before I started reading about the book, Riley said that in her author comment that she writes historical romance set in England in the 1800s, giving voice to the voiceless 10,000 people of color who loved, laughed, and lived full lives, even as the sands of time buried their stories. So this one, The Butterfly Bride, is one of the advertisements for love stories. And this is actually book 3, because I saw them at the library like for a couple of weeks before I checked out one of them. And that in this story also you could see some of the characters from the previous books. Like one of them is the main hero's brother and the woman that he married. And they're still having issues with that man's mother, this man's mother also. So this is the story of Frederica Burley. She's the illegitimate daughter of the Duke and wants to be married by Christmas. She wants to choose the man herself, so she advertises in the paper. Otherwise, her dad will pick out one of his cronies to marry her. She's also getting sinister threats, and she needs help and protection, so she asks her attractive friend Jasper, Lord Hartwell, for assistance. He starts falling for her as he tries to protect her and help her choose a husband, but he can't marry her himself, can he? Would that work out? And the book description says that the two friends risk their lives for each other, so they should be able to risk their feelings for a chance at a deep and true love together. But he's not looking for marriage, and she's not looking for convenience. And the author also wrote about this title that she said, I love writing Frederica and Jasper's story. This couple is dear to my heart because of the many things that they both had to overcome to complete their journey to love. One doesn't have to be perfect to be loved, but with that right person, working and laughing together, bonded in love and hope, perfection can be had. And then my last book, a more modern day one again, is Mia Sosa, The Worst Best Man. The library has both book and ebook, came out in 2020. 3 years ago, wedding planner Lena was left at the altar by Andrew via a text to his brother and best man Max. And even worse, if you can imagine more worse, it was Max's fault Andrew decided not to marry her. So Lena has hated both of them, but Max really she loathed much more than Andrew. Once their marriage didn't work out, whatever, but to convince somebody not to marry you, oh no. And she also does not want to let her family down. There's an attraction between them, but it's also difficult, of course, for her to get past what he did. And Max always feels that he's the second runner-up to his brother. It's like, would Lena really choose him first? They're working together to win the pitch so that she can get her job that she really wants. And they end up staying at a couples retreat and really revealing themselves to each other from the leader's insightful questions. They're just pretending to be together, but their answers are real. Is their relationship destined for a happy ending? And Kirkus Review said that it's a slow burn romance done perfectly right. A captivating love story about two people who bring out the best in each other, both professionally and personally. So it was not the worst best man, but maybe the best man after all for Lena.
Wonderful, Mary. Okay, let's go back to Sera, so she can tell us about the diversity project, their inclusivity project, and her Harlequin mentorship, and then finish up with her last books.
Sera, woohoo! Very good.
So I'm part of I was selected for the Romance Includes You mentorship program, which is hosted by Harlequin Romance. And it's one of, they actually have many inclusivity initiatives. I'm trying to, draw out and find more diverse, writing talent. They have things similar to, pitch wars, and they have other initiatives. This particular mentorship, I had to submit a manuscript and, basically compete with other manuscripts. And, they chose mine. Okay. I lost my mind when they told me, but there were 11 other finalists and 160 total submissions. So what they do is I of course, besides the grant that I receive, I work together with a mentor for 12 months, and we work on developing a project together, and we go through the entire publishing process And so I have monthly, conversations with him, and I get feedback on my manuscripts and any other things that I propose to him during the year. And so it's been a really good opportunity to actually learn what it takes to write a successful proposal and eventually bring it, to market, which is usually the part. It's access usually that is missing many times with a lot of underrepresented writers. It's they know how to write, but it's getting access to the opportunity, and so that was designed to give access to whoever won the mentorship. You mentioned also the Inclusive Romance Project, and that's a separate project that was organized by Karma Kelly, who's a DEI consultant. She was a DEI consultant for RWA, and it's actually a big umbrella project. There's a Slack space with multiple channels where different groups can talk. If you specialize in LGBTQ writings, or if you specialize in other types of writing, then you have a space to talk and to discuss. But the mentorship is sort of like there's a group of writers who we apply, and then we're chosen as mentors, and then mentees apply, and then we're matched up, and we follow this mentee for 6 months. And so my mentee, for example, I'm helping her develop her project, and she's drafting it, and she wanted resources on how to maintain accountability and to sort of to draft a romance novel with all the beats and everything. So that is what we do, and so it's a really wonderful project. There's a huge, really, there's me, but there's really very experienced writers who are also participating in that project, again, to offer experience and access to talented writers from underrepresented groups. And then finally, I think you wanted me, okay, so we're good with that. And so if there's, I can link, maybe later on I can send links to both places. There's a lot of resources on how to access those two projects.
Okay, and then minute or two on the new Karina Adores line.
Right, so the Karina Adores line, there's Harlequin, and then, there are the different category lines and imprints. Karina initiated a new imprint this summer, which is Karina Adores, which is geared towards LGBTQ love stories, if possible by own voices. And there's 2 novels are published each month. And so we're in the second month. I think the Best Laid Plaid is being published this month. It's a male-male romance. There's also there are also different pairings. The idea being that to have the space to tell these sorts of stories. And so there are 2 titles that are published each month.
Okay, and you've got a couple more titles to share with us now.
I actually exhausted my titles at the.
Okay.
I do have titles I'm looking forward to.
Oh, so okay. Please tell us that one.
So there's there's of course Zini by Rebecca Witherspoon, which is a novel that I'm really looking forward to reading, and a novel that just hit my mailbox this week was You Had Me at Ola by Alexis Daria. So those are the 2 big, I'm waiting to clear off my schedule so I can read these 2 novels because I'm really looking forward to that. So those are my
wonderful. All right. Okay, we'll go back to me here, and then we'll have the big wrap up. Okay, I have 4 more titles to share with you. The first is called Looking for Group. Our second one by that same title by Alexis Hall. Ebook and book came out in 2016, and you'll see he's a diverse author. College student and ardent gamer Drew joins a new massively multiplayer online gaming group. Not World of Warcraft, but it looks exactly and acts exactly like World of Warcraft. Wink, wink. He connects especially with Solace, a nerdy female healer, and finds himself interested in her offline, except that she's a he named Kit, and Drew is maybe okay with that, even though he's only ever dated girls. This story is by turns funny and heartfelt, with the realistic uncertainties and growth found during the college years. It features some of the best in-game dialogue I've ever read, which is often tricky to pull off I'm not a gamer, and I was drawn nearly effortlessly into that world. As I've said, this author is extremely versatile, and I look forward always eagerly to new stories. The next I've got is a trilogy of novellas called Hamilton's Rebellion by Rose Lerner, Courtney Milan, and Alyssa Cole. We have that as an ebook, came out in 2017. Framed by fictional papers being collected by Eliza Hamilton of her husband's wartime years, this is a trilogy of novellas. Lerner's story focuses on Rachel, who faked her death to join the army. She encounters her estranged husband Nathan disguised as a spy. These characters' Jewish faith is an important part of their relationship and helps fuel their desire for a more open world. In Milan's story, Black American John Hunter spares white Englishman Henry Latham's life during the Battle of Yorktown. They get to know each other on the long walk to John's hometown. Years later, now merchant John travels to England to find out if he and Henry can forge a life together. Finally, Cole's story features Mercy Alston, a maid to Mrs. Hamilton. Mercy has been too often disappointed in love and is irritated at her interest in dressmaker Andromeda. However, Mrs. Hamilton wants Andromeda's story for her archives. If these women can overcome a big misunderstanding, they might get their happily ever after. This one's a somewhat bigger one than a lot of people know. This Quotient by Helen Huang. We own it as a book, an ebook, and audiobook. Came out in 2018. Our follow-up book is also popular, called The Bride Test. Stella is an econometrician, passionate and driven in her work. However, she's plagued by her mother's concerns about finding a good man, settling down, and providing grandchildren. She decides to hire Michael Fan for tutoring in bedroom skills, figuring that will improve her chances at getting a long-term relationship. There won't be any problem here, will there? Yes. This story is fizzy and light, although it is balanced with heavy family secrets and Stella's communication issues at times. These two are ultimately a satisfying fit. This is an Own Voices story. The author disclosed in an afterword that she is on the autism spectrum, which she didn't find out until she became an adult. Her follow-up story, also one of the characters is on the spectrum as well. My final story is a historical romance. One of my favorite authors of this, of the male-male romance and historical romance, The Ruin of a Rake by Sebastian. We own as a book only, came out in 2017. Julian Medlock has worked hard to claw his way into the town from a background in trade. Asked to rehabilitate the reputation of Lord Courtney, a good friend of his sister, he is alternately appalled by the peer's financial mess and fascinated by his charm and kindness. Nobody knows that Julian wrote a Gothic novel whose main character looks suspiciously like Courtney. Illness and secrets threaten their growing bond. This is part of a linked series involving the Turner brothers and their circle. It's not necessary to read them in any order, although this story's final chapter brings all the primary and secondary characters from the three novels together in a satisfying finale. Chronologically, the first book in this series is The Soldier's Scoundrel, which I also liked very much. Okay, I think we have come to the end of all of our recommendations. If I'm correct, we've given you about 24 choices, plus a couple other books that we've told you about, and the American Dreamer series, which has more than one title. So if you're not able to find something good in there, I'd still ask you to give us a shot, but I think we've given you some great choices. So I'd like to thank especially my panelists today, Sera Taíno and Mary Kietzman. Thank you. I had a great time, and I hope you did too.